Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Brother Esquire coming to you once again from the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. First, we want to thank Almighty God for giving us an opportunity to share this platform with you. This week's episode is part two of Sex Trafficking in Your Backyard. Know the signs. We were here last week, and because of the overwhelming response, we depart from our regularly scheduled program to bring you part two of Sex Trafficking in Your Backyard. Know the signs. This week, we have with us some very special guests because last week we had with us Danielle X. Perkins from Dallas, Texas, who brought us some vital and critical information regarding the sex trafficking industry. This week, we're more New York based. We have with us the city councilwoman from the 45th Councilmanic District in Brooklyn, New York, Councilwoman Farah Lewis, who will bring to us some of the legislation that she's introducing to the New York City Council. And we also have with us Monique Ferguson-Riley, who is a former victim, a survivor, and now with the work she's doing in the Bronx, she's a savior to so many young people who have been ensnared in the sex traffic industry in the Bronx. Monique Ferguson-Riley also will have with her a young person who she's helped in terms of recovering, who she's working with right now, Miss Leah, who we're hopefully going to be blessed to have on this program as well. From my understanding, Miss Leah is gainfully employed and she's working at this time, but hopefully she can make our program before it's over. So we have with us, how's it going, sisters?
It's going good.
It's going good. I see we have our councilwoman, Farah Lewis, with us. Thank you so much, Councilwoman, for being with us. I know you have a very busy schedule amid this COVID. You're doing tremendous work, and I understand you have a hard stop. So we're going to get right into it. And we have also Monique Ferguson-Riley. Sister Riley, thank you, number one, for coming on this show. And as a former victim, as a survivor, and as a savior to our young people up in the Bronx, I want to first thank you for having the courage to tell your story, to be being transparent, and also to say, you know what, not only am I recovering myself, but I'm going to go out there and help other people, young people who were ensnared in this industry as well. So just as a background, can you tell us what was your first contact with the sex trafficking industry?
Yes, absolutely. So, my first contact with it was, well, how I got involved was by a 13-year-old. So, I was on school grounds when the grooming and the luring took place. So, I met a friend who was 13. I was 12 at the time. I was in middle school in the city. And the young lady approached me and became my friend. It was kind of a process that took place where it was like, be your friend, hang out with me, cut school with me, and those things later on progressed to, I can't believe you're a virgin, learn to smoke. And then ultimately, she did lead me into human trafficking.
And this young lady that posed as a friend, she was 14 years old. So
She was
uh,
13.
13 years.
Hmm.
So she was in your peer group
Yeah, yes, absolutely. In school.
in school. And was she in the industry for a long time before becoming a recruiter of some sort?
I would say she must have been in there for a while because, just to go a little bit into the story, and I always give this part of the story because I want you to know how real it is and how it happens. So aside from her, leading me into this world, on the first night that she took me to see a John, she coerced me into it. She said it was going to be just me dancing, and all I had to do was dance for some extra money, and that will be it. We ended up going to the John's door to his house, and Once the person opened the door, her words to him was, "Hi, daddy." And then she walked straight back into the apartment. That tells everybody that what? She was there before. She knows him. And so I was led by him into the living room where I was told to dance. I waited. I tried to wait for my friend to come back into the room because this is something that she said she would do with me. Eventually, she never came out the bathroom, and I was raped. From that point on, I think once it was all done, she came out of the bathroom. The guy threw $300 on me and told me to leave his apartment. The moment we got out of the house was the part when I realized that I was tricked. I mean, that's when it really hit me, because she didn't come out the bathroom the whole time. I was screaming and yelling her name at all. But once everything was done and the money was paid, we walked out and she asked me for half of the money. That's when I realized that I was tricked into human trafficking. This is something that I could have easily gotten out of, but I would say there was a lot of things that was happening around me, particularly after that event. I eventually opened up to a guidance counselor, and I explained to them what had happened. They followed the regular protocols and things, call my mom, call, ACS. They got everybody involved, detectives. The detective came to my house that evening, and I would say he dealt with me rather treacherously. He was very not very sensitive to the conversation. So he came through my mom's apartment and told my mom to leave the room and had a discussion with me. And at first the discussion was going well. I thought that, okay, this is something that was wrong and it wasn't okay to happen to me. But I will say, as soon as my mom left the room, he was talking so rudely. He was like, this is something you wanted to do. Just be honest, between you and me, you went over there because you were a prostitute. And I mean, he put the blame on me so heavy. Like, I didn't know I was going there for that. I literally went there because I wanted some extra money to kind of gain some of the things that I seen my friends wearing. My mom didn't have the funding or anything of that nature. And I wasn't going there to prostitute myself. The friend did make it clear that I was only going there to take off my clothes, which was a wrong thing to do. But that was the only thing that I was going to do. That was,
And Sister Monique, was the detective male or female?
Male.
A male detective?
No female.
So there was no protocol in place to have a female detective question you, or not even question you, but to try to get information to solve a crime, because a crime had been committed. You were a victim of a crime, and you were being interrogated as if you were the perpetrator of the actual crime that was committed.
Right. And I shut down. And that was the reason why I shut down. And after that meeting, I felt like no one understood, because I was horribly, picked on in my house by my sisters who had found out what was going on. ACS eventually removed me at the home without any prevention or intervention services. From there, I AWOL'd from the site that they had me in. I think it was the lighthouse or something of that nature. And then from that location, I ended up going right back to this friend's home. She was all I knew at this point. I couldn't go back to my mom's house. And so that is when I really realized that the young lady has been in this for much longer than I would have expected, because it wasn't something that was new to her. And I found out that her mom was putting her onto it. So her mother was sending her into the school to pick up other young ladies to make money off of them. So the mother was the pimp.
And for the average person hearing this, it sounds almost incredulous. It sounds unbelievable. But this is happening literally right in our backyard. I mean, while school children are supposed to be in school, they're being lured by these perpetrators. And before we go any further, I just would like all of our viewing audience to please hit like, subscribe, start a watch party, bring a young person into this conversation. Yes, what we're going to discuss today is going to sometimes be graphic, but you best believe many of your young people are already confronted with some of the things that we're going to discuss that at times could be a bit graphic. In fact, if you listen to their music talks about what Sister Monique is talking about right now. If you listen to the lyrics of some of these songs that many of us are bopping our heads to, it has this type of testimony and commentary in the music. So hit the like, subscribe, and start a watch party. And I'm going to segue into our city councilwoman, because what you just talked about, the agencies failed you, NYPD failed you, and to a greater extent, many of our parents, we fail our children based on the fact that we may not know the signs, we may not know the best way to protect them. You know, an authority figure comes to our home and we're thinking, okay, this is the police. The police is supposed to help. And in your instance, the police actually hurt more than they help, because once you shut down, the likelihood of catching the perpetrators were it was diminished. So, Councilwoman, I know you've been a strong advocate in City Hall in New York City. What work can legislators do around this industry to help eradicate it?
Well, first, Brother Esquire, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be on the show today, and for even shedding light on this conversation. And I want to thank Monique for her advocacy, as you call her, savior. I'm going to share those same sentiments. If we don't have strong advocates like Monique, we're going to continue to lose our young women. So as a legislator, we could definitely introduce bills in order to combat some of these issues. Some of them Monique just shared. When I was younger, and this is completely different from the conversation of trafficking. When I was younger, I was sexually assaulted by two men in my community. And when I went and sat with NYPD to see how we could get this dealt with, I was told the same thing. I was told, you sure you didn't want it? You sure you don't know them? You sure you're not dating one of these guys? And I had to repeatedly tell them, I am not aware of why they would even decide to do something so disgusting and malicious to me. So we often see these things happen in our communities when we're dealing with law enforcement, who's supposed to be there to protect us, and do something completely opposite. Last year, when I ran for office, got into office, I was getting numerous phone calls, emails, texts, Facebook messages from families of young women that went missing. We weren't sure what was happening in our city. Bronx and Brooklyn had the highest cases of young women going missing. This is even before 2019. But during 2019, there seemed to be like a resurgence of young women going missing. And as I contacted these families and followed up with them to find out how we can put up information to see where these young ladies were ending up missing and who could be helpful and addressing it, speaking with NYPD, we were doing our research. We found out that the NYPD doesn't even record when someone 18 or older goes missing, except for the silver alert or the amber alert, if you're 17 and younger. So I realized we needed to immediately put in some legislation to address the matter. And we know the bureaucracy with legislation, it takes a little bit long. But the two bills that I had put in, one is called Intro 1928, which would require the NYPD to compile and send and post a yearly missing persons report. This is an opportunity to disaggregate basically by race, age, gender, and by precinct, percentages of cases that are solved or unsolved of people that are basically going missing. And the second bill was Intro 1929, which creates a public alert system to be used in a missing persons case where the person is believed to be in imminent danger. And which goes back to the story that I shared earlier with 2019. A lot of these young women were 18 and older that were going missing, but we started to see there was like a chronic issue and lack of urgency to address those matters. If she was 18 or older, there was this window of 24 to 48 hours where they were telling us, hey, let's see if she ends back up somewhere. Most of the cases that came to my office, I know Councilmember Ampry Samuels was a strong advocate on this as well. Some of the young people that end up missing was in her district. Some were in Councilmember Barron's district. A lot of them were runaways. They were runaways, and we end up finding out because the NYPD would do their research and we would find out something was happening at home. Most of the time, and Monique could shed some light on this, when they end up as runaways, domestic violence victims, they're homeless, they're looking for a way out. You have the pimps, the Johns, the traffickers, whatever you want to call them, waiting for them because they happen to see, they can tell when this person is, missing, lost, isolated, or going through something. And that's their target. The teenagers are more susceptible than the other ages. But that's the reason why I put in the piece of legislation.
And Councilwoman, you mentioned intro 1929.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between that and, let's say, the Amber Alerts that we get on our phones from time to time?
So for the Amber Alert, it's for someone that's missing that's under the age of 18. So that's a 5-year-old. There was a young man that was missing many years ago, and he ended up dying. I forgot his name, Aquendo, I believe his name, but he had a disability, and he ended up running out the school, running away, and then they found his body way later. So the Amber Alert is for someone that's 18 and for 17 and younger. Mm-hmm. And the Silver Alert are for the elderly. Most of the time, someone that may have dementia that may end up missing, and they have to find a way to look for them. But there was this, gray area for 18 and older. And that's how we ended up there, putting in something for those folks that ended up missing.
And now how can we, as the public, well, in New York City, work to see that intro 1928 and intro 1929 becomes law? Because to me, it is reprehensible that we have a serious situation dealing with sex trafficking, especially in the Bronx and Brooklyn, but yet this particular bill that has been introduced is not made law as of this time. What can we do as the listening audience to apply some pressure on whomever to get this these two intros law?
First things first, these conversations, and I want to thank you again. Without these conversations, we won't be able to highlight the issues. The lack of data puts us in a position to be enabled to actually have information on finding hotspots and trends and things of like that. So continue to have these conversations and involve folks like Monique. That's one. Two, hopefully next year, the new public safety chair of the city council, who's now council member Adrienne Adams, who's phenomenal. I'm going to approach her and see if she would be willing to have this heard in committee. So conversations with her and tapping on her shoulder and reminding her how important this is to our communities is really important. And I'm sure this is something that she would want to bring before the forefront. Public safety is something that is instrumental and crucial, and she has the wherewithal and the voice to work on this. So my hope is that she would be willing to bring this to the floor for us to have the conversation, to bring in the NYPD during a hearing, have an oversight hearing, and seeing how we could get this passed in early 2021.
Excellent. And you mentioned two of your colleagues, Ampria Samuel and Adrienne Adams, two wonderful sisters who are doing a tremendous job in the city council. And hopefully in 2021, we're able to get this legislation passed. And in New York, I believe there are 33 new city council people who will be sworn in for the first time. And also in 2021, we have our mayoral election. And hopefully this subject is on the front burner and on the platform and on the agenda of anyone who's running for city council, male or female,
right,
in New York City, because we just can't continue to have our young people abused and used in the way that they are. I want to get back to you, Sister Monique. You talked about being 12 and 13. As a parent, what are some of the signs we can look for before it becomes too late? Because when we're raising teenagers, as teenagers know everything. I have one myself. There's nothing you could tell a teenager that they don't think they know. But as a parent, what advice would you give to parents to help identify when they see something maybe going left before it goes totally left?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would say it always starts with the attitude. So there's always an attitude adjustment. My mom was at work most times and she wasn't able to really see the changes in me that was happening. So, most parents, if you come from a Caribbean background, they say you're smelling yourself. Look for things like that, the attitude change, the adjustment. If it is the child, going from being an A student, always going to class, and then this child all of a sudden is, failing in class. This child is not going to school early. Apart from that, you want to look at friends. Who are your who are they hanging with? There's a saying, birds of a feather flock together. There's a saying about that, and it's kind of somewhat true, especially when it comes to this forum. Your child will more than likely come home with money. My mom did not know, but there was times, because I know that she was suffering. She was really trying hard to make ends meet. We were in and out the shelter system. And, there were times where she'll find $100 bills in random places in her room, in her bag or her purse, in her shoe. And she never, ever thought I didn't put that money there, but I thought that was my way of helping my mother. So, this child will have extra money on them. Pay attention to the phone calls. Are they hiding these phone calls from you? Are they talking in front of you? Are they excusing themselves when you're having these phone calls? Do the child leave right away afterwards? Pay attention to online. There's a ton of online recruitment going on right now. I mean, it is so heavy now that our kids are all remote. Online recruitment is it right now. When everything shut down during COVID-19, that was their way into our youth. And so we have to pay attention to what they're doing online. Aside from that, also, do your child is your child coming in with new tattoos? I got branded at a very young age. Some people do get branded. And so they have to pay attention to what are the signs. And these are some of the signs here.
Got it. Got it. And as far as educators are concerned, where was the guidance counselor or the homeroom teacher in identifying some of this stuff?
That is the problem. So for years, I mean, I'm 37. I just turned 37 yesterday. And so I just want to say, for years, this is happening. We're still finding young girls today, and some guys here that are getting lured and groomed on the school campus. I just say, I can't blame the teachers. What it is that it's an overcrowding in our schools already. They already tied up in trying to make sure that they meet quota, and, all these different things are coming at them. It's really hard to identify that. This is why, we have been campaigning that, human trafficking education is placed into our children's schools. It has to be. It has to be priority because, yes, the trafficker would take somebody that's 20 years old, and older, but children are lucrative. And the average age for a child getting involved in human trafficking is 12 years old. So why aren't we educating our children at an earlier age? Why aren't we doing that? Why are we choosing to put a blindfold over our children's eyes and think it's not happening? We have done surveys alongside NYU. We have done and conducted our own surveys here in Bronx and Brooklyn in certain areas. And we found that a lot of our children, a lot of our parents don't know what human trafficking is. They only believe that it's abduction. And I just want to piggyback off of the councilwoman. She had mentioned something about runaways. Runaways are at the most danger. When they are gone, it takes a trafficker 7 minutes. And that is FBI, New York stat laws. 7 minutes for them to pick up on your child's demeanor, what's going on with them, and how they might, offer them something or recruit. 7 minutes. So imagine you tell your child, you know what, I don't care what you do, get out my house. Or your child said, Mommy, I'm running away, I'm leaving. She packs her bag, she leaves. 7 minutes at a bus stop for a trafficker to pick this young lady up. This is happening. It is everybody's problem, and we have to fight it. So runaways are even at more danger than anything. In fact, when I ran away, every time that I did run away, I was in somebody's brothel. So it is super important when we talk about our running. We just rescued 3 young people this year, and all during COVID-19, with one being a boy in Brooklyn, with one being a girl here in the Bronx. She didn't run away from her mom's home. This young lady did not run away from her mom's home. Her family members had put her up to leaving the home because her mother was too strict. They put her into a teen shelter, drop-in shelter. The young lady got back onto Facebook, and met with a group of guys. They picked up in front of the actual shelter. The shelter staff could not stop her. She went with these guys. We had to act like Detective Caleb in order to get this young lady back. The real detective was nowhere to be found. He only worked on her case 3 times out of the week, and that's it.
Wow.
That's unacceptable.
Totally. And Councilwoman, what can we do as far as engaging the necessary agencies and organizations to help combat this? Because apparently it appears that law enforcement, the way that it's constructed, is not adequate. It's not the answer, and they're not adequately trained to handle this. Because in hearing Sister Monique's story, she mentioned law enforcement a couple of times intervening at a point where they could have literally stopped it, and it didn't happen.
Right. And doing my research on this particular issue, what I'm also learning is that some law enforcement, I'm going to call them agents or officers, end up wanting to go to the special victims unit because they realize they lack education and awareness. So sometimes they come off of maybe being on the beat on the street or maybe community affairs and go, you know what, I want to give a little bit more attention to the special victims unit because they don't have enough information. They're not really educated. They're not aware. And most of the times it's officers that look like us that want to provide or put in all their efforts in that particular unit. There was something that Monique shared that is very important here. When we look at educators or administrators in schools, we're automatically assuming they're supposed to be, being able to target and pinpoint when a young person is going through this. Got it. They're overwhelmed. The caseloads are going through the roof. So we have to depend on our nonprofit organizations that we fund in the city council. We fund them through discretionary funding to give the extra support that we need in the schools as well as the community. Safe Horizon is one of them, which they're amazing. There's the Polaris Project. The DA's office has a plethora of services, Urban Justice Center and all that. We have to depend on those nonprofit organizations to provide the support that NYPD cannot provide. They're not social workers. NYPD obviously is not social workers. We see what's been happening nationally, even during COVID. So we have to support organizations like Monique's organization in order to provide the extra services to help identify those young people that might be falling into these situations. And I also wanted to quickly share, Brother Esquire, there was something that you shared earlier with Monique. We seem to think that this is an international issue. We think human trafficking is happening in other areas or during the Super Bowl. It's inside of our backyards. It's happening in our community. Right now, I'm working with the NYPD in my district because there's a trap house right in my district where there's girls as young as 17 years old that are being led there and they never come out. I know right now there are a few elected officials that's against an agency called Vice. You guys know Vice? And Monique could probably elaborate on this a little bit more.
Well, explain it for our viewing audience.
I'm going to let Monique explain it because I know she works closely with them. But Vice is helping us address issues in our district where young girls are falling into prostitution. And we don't have any other support to get them out of those homes. So we need these nonprofit organizations funded. Got it.
Well, Monique, before we get into Vice, there's also a question from one of my frat brothers, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, of course, Gregory Doreska. He wants you to explain the branding and the tattoo that you mentioned earlier. But before we do that, we have to take a quick break to recognize our sponsors. So at this time, we're going to just take a few seconds, 90 seconds to recognize our wonderful sponsors. We have first, as one of our sponsors, the Final Call. As you all know, the Final Call has been reporting on a lot of unconventional stories, and in fact, they won an award for this particular story dealing with sex trafficking crisis. And over 45 stories have been written in the Final Call about sex trafficking. So if you have a chance to get a digital subscription, you could do it at finalcalldigital.com and subscribe to the Final Call. We also have with us Stigma Consulting Group. If your child has a disability and you have not read or trying to navigate the IEP and may need some assistance with that, you can see our sister Danielle Williams, who is the CEO of Stigma Consulting Group, and she will assist you in navigating the bureaucracy of DOE to make sure that your child get the necessary services to perform at the highest level that they can. Stigma Consulting Group. We also have with us BK9. BK9. If you're in Brooklyn, not too far from the Barclays Center, and you want some good food, some jerk wings, some cod and cassava cake, some soups, jerk chicken, oxtail, whatever is Caribbean and Neo-Caribbean, as they like to call it, Neo-Soul, check out BK9 and get a nice discount. Let them know the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast sent you, and they're going to treat you like family like they always do. We would like you to also check out Blissful Journey for the sisters who are keeping it right and tight during this COVID. You got to check out Blissful Journey. A young sister by the name of Gertie Isaac started this company. You'll be supporting your own, and the products are amazing. I swear, if I had a little bit up top, I'll be getting some Blissful Journey myself. But you can visit her at www.haveablissfuljourney.com, and she'll make sure she get you the products in a timely fashion. And last but not least, check out 231 Designs. That's the brother that created our logo back here that you see in the back. He creates our flyers. His name is Michael A. Clark. He's also a football coach for the Rosa Jets Football Association and a basketball coach at Long Island Lutheran High School. Great young brother. Support him. Michael A. Clark at 231 Designs and Marketing. He does logos, flyers, anything dealing with marketing. Check him out. And now we go back to our program. Monique, the question was asked, what you mentioned tattooing, you mentioned branding, but you didn't literally, get into explaining that. And one of our guests would like to know what is with the branding or the tattooing, and how does it occur, and when does it occur?
Okay, so branding has been around since slavery, back in slavery. It has never gone anywhere, especially for the trafficking world. It is when a pimp or a trafficker or somebody that recruited someone into the sex world or human trafficking, and they want to make sure that the people know, or other pimps know, that this is mine. This person, it belongs to them. So a lot of the times we have come by individuals who have had branding, which let us know that they have been involved in some form of human trafficking. And this is not something that's new in the gang world as well. Back in the day, the Bloods used to brand with I believe it was like 3 cigarette burns on the arm. So branding has been a part of, the world of gangs and human trafficking for a very long time. It usually happens for an individual who's just coming in. So it's a part of the break-in process. When a person is either abducted or getting involved with a pimp, they would take this initiation to make sure that the people know that this person belongs to them. Where you would find branding on individuals can vary. For example, we have found individuals with branding in the bottom of their lip, in the upper part of their lip, the eyelids, on the breast area, the neck, behind the ear, barcodes on the foot. And so we have had people who have gone and taken these individuals to actual tattoo parlors. So this is why we're working so hard to get tattoo people who work in tattoo artistry. They need to be involved in knowing with the signs of human trafficking. And it's important for them to be educated on it.
You mentioned barcodes.
Mm-hmm.
What does they are?
So it's different.
That seems pretty high tech. Now they barcoding.
Oh yeah. And then some people just go and get barcodes on a regular in a tattoo place. But, for some, tattoo artists, they know the young ladies are coming in. Some of these women are either extra drugged up. you know, because they have to get them to the place where, you know, they're going to submit, you know, to doing it. So, you know, when you go to every tattoo place, they tell you, you can't be drunk, you can't be high, you can't be X, Y, and Z. You know, but for some of these individuals, they'll do the extra stuff behind scenes for these individuals because they're giving them money. This is why we have to, you know, start bringing it to the tattoo parlor as well, because a lot of our young girls who have been found branded have gone to regular tattoo places.
Wow. And so I think that's one of the things we need to bring awareness to as well, because if we can partner with some of these tattoo parlors to help them identify signs, to help them to be part of the solution, as opposed to contributing, you know, knowingly or unknowingly to the problem, I think we will be able to make some headway.
Right.
Well,
and I actually went to a couple of places out here in the Bronx, and I found that one person said, well, I don't want to snitch. You know, I don't want to be a part of this. And this is the owner, and he's a very, very known tattoo, you know, have a very known tattoo parlor out here. And he was just like, I'm not a snitch. I'm not snitching about these things, but this is someone's life. This can be your daughter, your sister, anyone.
absolutely. And we're going to get into that quote unquote no snitching culture, hopefully before the show is over. But we also have with us a guest who contacted me last week after our show, Cynthia Turnquest Jones, who does a lot of work with young people in the educational system. And as we talked about education, as we talked about 12-year-olds who are moving from the schoolyard to some of these trap houses, I wanted Sister Cynthia to talk about what her experiences have been as an educator in Harlem. And I know the Bronx and Brooklyn are the hotbeds, but I'm sure Harlem is experiencing some of that as well, just being, you know, in the urban centers.
So hey, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's one of the main things that everybody say on these kind of platforms. So hello, how are you? I don't know if I should say that I'm happy to be here, but what I am happy about is that there is information that is being disseminated. Yes, it is taking place in your backyard. Yes, it is taking places in some of the homes that are around your area. I live in Westchester County. It is very heavy here. And one of the things as an educator in the school is that I watch the girls. I watch them very heavily. I watch how sometimes they come in, and we're talking about middle school. We have some girls who come in and they're dressed a certain way, and then all of a sudden they're wearing maybe a Gucci belt, Louis Vuitton bag, Gucci bag. I wonder what's going on with you. Some of them, their parents drop them off to school in the morning, and then they dip out through the other side of the door, and they go and do whatever they're doing all day, and then they come back for dismissal. I've caught many just like that. I've also watched some of our girls. I've had to have conversations with staff in the way that we talk, especially when it comes to our Black girls, our Black and Latino girls, calling them fast, right? There's no way that you are 12 years old and 13 years old and what's going on is not addressed, and we're not embracing them. So I have conversations with staff members. I tell male staff members who they cannot be in the room with alone. I tell female staff members that you have to embrace these girls. You have to make sure that there is enough courage for them to come to you and tell you that something is wrong. Sister Monique, the reason why you went and you spoke to a guidance counselor is because that guidance counselor made you feel a way that it was safe for you to speak to that guidance counselor. The sad part about it is the fact that ACS then removes you from the home, and I want the listeners to know that ACS is one of the main pimps in this game. Our children
Explain that.
Yeah. Our children are in foster care, and they are not minding our children the proper way, and they are the top bidders to selling our Black girls on a regular basis. They don't even know where some of the girls are. They are missing. They're not looking for them. They could care less about them. They are taking them out of the home and not doing anything to try to reunite them inside of the home. And now these girls, they get lost. That's what they call lost in the system.
Yes.
And so this conversation that you are having is something very, very, very important. And again, listeners, you need to take time out. What I told Brother Jock the other day is that I take time out and I walk around. Walk around. Take a simple walk around the block and check out a couple of the homes. Look at the activity that's going on there. Check out the weed man. You know what the weed man is doing? But I just want to tell everybody this right here. We have a lot of girls in our school who started putting their pimp name down on the blue card. So when there was an emergency, or if she wanted to go home or wanted to leave early, she will call that person and that person will come and pick her up.
Wow. So this game is well, man, this thing is getting quite complex. So that authorization card, the that's what you're talking about, right? The authorization card that
the emergency card.
The emergency card. So they're putting the pimp's name on the emergency card. So now the pimp has easy access into the school building.
Yes.
To take them out of school.
Yes. And so unless in New York City, we have what you call parent coordinators. And the parent coordinators are the ones who are making sure that they are coordinating with the parent to make sure that the parent is the parent on the blue card. We've had pimps come into the school, ask about how they're doing. We've given them the report card, and they have left the building with the report card and the girl.
Wow.
Yes.
And man, this actually makes me kind of reflect on when I was in school, right? And there were times when my own classmates, and at the time you didn't think about it, you know, my own classmates had 22-year-old boyfriends and guys coming to the school, picking them up in cars. But you just thought like, man, you know, homeboy, that's one of the hot boys that's getting it, you know. But I, you know, as a classmate, you're not thinking, well, your fellow classmate is being pimped out. Yeah. You're not thinking about that. You're just thinking, well, this young lady happens to be a bit more mature and you know, she's in a world that you wish that, you know, you had an attracting power to as the guy that's picking her up, so to speak, you know. But you never would think that, well, this person is actually in this industry. Incredible. We see in the line that Sister Erica Muhammad states we're going to need maybe a part 3, and I think that that might be the case. And I know Councilwoman.
Just want to add that. I mean, this is a heavy, uncomfortable conversation that individuals do not want to have, right? And I'm talking about from the songs, right? Mama's in the kitchen, you know, and sisters around the corner selling fruit cocktail. It's in the songs. It's in the nurseries. Understand? It you go to stores. If you go to stores in particular neighborhoods and you look at what they sell on the rack for girls, for little girls, right? They probably got my name up in a couple of the stores because I sure enough ripped, tied up in there and said, the clothing that you're selling in here, this is not for little girls. You shouldn't be selling clothing like this. From the clothing.
What?
I would also like to add to that because I feel like, you know,
I'm sorry, Sister Monique. Can I just cut you off one quick second, and we're gonna get right to it. But I know our Councilwoman has a very hard cutoff at 4:45, and there's 1 minute left. And I'm gonna ask her to give some closing remarks. Then we're gonna continue the conversation, if you would allow me, Councilwoman.
Brother Esquire, I want to thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I'm happy to reconnect with Monique and be introduced to Cynthia. I pray, hope, and encourage you, implore you please have a part 3, like Erica is mentioning. January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and that is a perfect opportunity to have the part 3. I'm listening to Cynthia, and I just want to grab you through the screen and bring you into my district, because these young girls are not fast, they're not promiscuous, they need help. And it's a public health crisis, and it's an attack on Black and brown young women. That's where we're at right now. We have 70,000 women, Black women and girls, that are missing in the United States of America. And nobody seems to think that that's a problem. Nobody wants to address it. So if we're speaking about branding, if we're speaking about things that we wear, things that are being sold in the stores, if we're talking about all this stuff, we know that we have a problem. And we need folks like Monique and Cynthia and you, Brother Esquire, that's creating the platform to have these conversations. Thank you for understanding that I had to leave to go to a prior commitment. And I hope that you continue to have this conversation. And thank you, ladies, for all that you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much again, Councilwoman Lewis, for spending over a minute of your time. I know 4:45 you got to run, but thank you so much. And we're going to do all that we can on our end to push that legislation that you're talking about, Intro 1928, Intro 1929. And again, thank you for your time. Sister Monique, sorry for the abruptness, but I just wanted to respect her request, which she made early on, which she agreed to be on the show. But proceed, please.
Yes, I was just saying, I appreciate what Miss Cynthia is saying, but I also believe that it really starts with education, and it's going to start with, us all building together. And I think right now everybody is so divided. So when she was talking about Vice earlier, these are all great organizations. We're all fighting the same cause, but there's such a division. And that kind of is one of the reasons why a lot of our kids fall through the cracks. The only time that they really all come together, and I'm talking about the Vice, I'm talking about Homeland Security, is when there's a sting or something that needs to take place. Then they start to connect. But if we're connected all the time, then there's nothing that can happen to our kids. We have to start educating indirectly. If you look at all of the platforms, when you go into the train station in New York City, and everybody have this uncomfortable stare. Nobody wants to stare each other in the eye. You have all of these boards that's on top of the train, but there's no information educating anyone on human trafficking. You got all of 42nd Street with all of their big boards. None of it says anything about anti-human trafficking. If we don't educate people on how human trafficking is taking place, how recruitment is taking place, we're never going to be able to know. We're never going to be able to fight this beast. And so I just wanted to add that in there because that's the issue. It's education, awareness. It's okay to sparingly educate some people, but everyone needs it. Everyone.
Thank you much, Sister Monique. And we have a couple more questions that we would like to ask. But before we do so, we're asking everyone to hit the subscribe button, start a watch party, hit the like button, and bring some young people around you that's who are in your household right now, some friends that you may have, and bring them into this discussion. Because as Sister Monique mentioned, as our guest Cynthia mentioned, this is happening in the schoolyards. We're not talking about high schools. We're talking about grade schools to junior high school, and we have to learn these signs. We have to know when we see a young person who's in danger and how to get them out of danger. And Sister Monique, if you could talk a little bit about your organization so that we can, number one, support your organization, and number two, maybe see if we can steer some young people to your organization for help. And if you could talk about some of the help that you provide.
Yes, absolutely. So Freedom Youth Family Justice Center is an organization that is empowering, strengthening, and stabilizing victims and survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence because it goes hand in hand. But we're also doing that through comprehensive support and services. We're also offering youth advocacy programs because we want the youth to be able to use their voice and be able to feel comfortable speaking up. Our voices are powerful, and what we hide behind our voices won't get out to the other people who need to hear it. And it also serves as a way for us to connect with the youth and to kind of educate them on human trafficking. So our youth are working towards fighting human trafficking, anti-bullying, and other social issues in the community that they are faced with on a daily basis.
Okay. Thank you much. And Sister Cynthia, I know you had mentioned some of the work that you've done with students and even educating your fellow educators on this issue. But I also understand your sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, has also been on the front line advocating for our young people in this regard.
Yeah, definitely. So, for anyone that's listening right now, there's a book. The title of the book is "Push Out: The Criminalization of Black Girls in Schools." It's by Monique W. Morris. She happens to be a soror. If you see that I have tabs because we when we head to Washington D.C. as members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, it's a part of our study guide, and that is because they have been criminalizing our girls and charging them with prostitution when it's sex trafficking. And what happens when you charge a girl with and criminalize them as a prostitute, what happens is that it's a segue into the prison system because they then continually gets charged over and over and over again. You can't charge an underage individual for prostitution. It's sex trafficking. So it's in the understanding of exactly what it is. And the thing with our girls is that if you look in the school, they have football, basketball, baseball. They have all of these things for boys, but they seldomly have things for girls. And so the push with having things for girls so they can attend after school and you get a chance to get to them and talk to them. And so they'll understand that if somebody is troubling you, then you have somebody to tell. But then the sister that spoke last week, Brother Jacques, she spoke about arming them. And in arming them is not only just the education, but also, teaching them karate and jujitsu, and when girls get to the age of 9, they go through this low self-image, even if they're in a home that is I guess
a stable home,
family, or a well-developed home. It doesn't matter what kind of home that they're in. Girls go through this low self-image thing from age 9 to 17, 18 years old. And so programs for girls in particular is very, 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 very important because they have to know that you are somebody, that you are more than what someone is violating you with. And for them to also have an outlet where they can speak to people. You have programs like GEMS in Delta Sigma Theta. You have programs like Black Girls Rock. Black Girls Rock is a very, very good program for girls to have in school, after school. There has to be something in the school. Like Sister Monique said, it starts with education, period, point blank. And so the schools are one of the best places. It shouldn't close at 3 o'clock. It should be open to around 8 o'clock. They have schools open at 8 o'clock for guys to go in there to play basketball. There should be something in there for the girls as well.
Okay. And Sister Monique, I see you wanted to say something in regards to that.
Oh, no, I didn't. I did actually. I had something that I wanted to mention. She had Miss Cynthia mentioned something about children going through the pipeline, kind of going into prison because of prostitution. So there's a bill that is out right now that has been out, and they're waiting to see if it's going to pass. And this bill is to bring about, I would say it's to bring about prostitution and to legalize it. That's what it is. It's a bill to decriminalize and legalize prostitution here in New York. And the issue that I have with that bill is that, we have a lot of individuals that are 18 that go to school without 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. And if these individuals want to go out there and, start to get themselves involved in sex work, what are the chances that we're going to see more peer-to-peer recruitment happening on the school ground? You understand? So I totally agree. You know, and children don't deserve, people who have been involved in prostitution should not get jail time. They should get services. It's super important. And in New York, that is our law, that if a child is found under the ages of 18 to be have been involved in prostitution of any sort, that it is called human trafficking, and this person gets services.
Okay. And Monique, a question for you. So how does one move from being a victim to being a survivor, and then in your case, becoming a savior? How to walk us through that process, if you can, and that transition?
Well, that was a hard transition for me. Like, I felt like I didn't come out until 2010, and I had to be in my late 20s. I was embarrassed the whole entire time, you know, that I have gone through that. You know, it's something that my mom wouldn't let me forget, something that my sister always teased me about. And so victim shaming was like a part of my, you know, my holdback in not wanting to come out. I just got tired of hearing other kids being abducted. I got tired of hearing that young girls or young men were being involved in human trafficking and coerced. And when I found out that there was a young person that was coerced on school grounds, that was that was it for me. I just said, I can't hold back anymore. I have to do something. But quite honestly, it took me to lose my job in order to really understand what my calling was. And so, you know, I had all these experiences in the past, and I didn't understand why I went through most of it, because I felt like a part of it was the peer pressure. It was the self-esteem that Miss Cynthia is talking about. It was the longing and the needing of someone to support me, and I didn't have that. It was the absences of not having money, or or seeing my parents go through, or my mother go through what she was going through, from borrowing food from the corner store to all of that. So I think at some point I just got tired. You get tired of hearing it, seeing it, and it sickens you. And then you're like, you know what? Just lead me, show me how to do this. So how one comes over this is by basically just submitting to what you have gone through, having a heart to look back into the community and say, this is something that's still happening, and I want to fight against it. You have to take a stand.
I see. And Miss Monique, again, I can't thank you enough for your transparency, for your level of courage, and what your testimony today is helping so many people, male and female, and just being outright about what you experienced and how you're overcoming what you've experienced. You're literally saving lives. You're
Right.
literally saving lives.
And if I can just add, you know, when we talk about sex trafficking and peer-to-peer recruitment, it's not just that. You know, I have been degraded where I have gone to John's house, where they have told me to go to a John house, and this person will tell you, put on a maid's outfit and call you a nigger and call you out your name. You know, it's not just sex. I have been strangled for more than 3 minutes, well, 3 minutes max. That's the time. After 3 minutes, you're pretty much done, just to get a couple of dollars in my pocket. It is more than what we think. And then it's the after effect, guys. It's the after effect of when you come out of this lifestyle, you're now saved. You know, you're moving on to try to find yourself and do something new. But it's those lingering moments in your mind where it's like, okay, I don't got bus pass. I don't have food. My rent is too high. This is going on in my life. And then it's those moments that take you back into the lifestyle. And it's no longer called human trafficking, but it's called survival sex. This is something that is continuing to happen. It's also an issue for a lot of our young victims who do come out and who turn their life around. But when COVID-19 hit, we have did a survey with NYU, and we found that there were many young people who have been involved in human trafficking, and they went right back into the lifestyle because their rent was low, they had no food, their babies needed diapers. We have to look at the outside of not just what's happening when a person goes through human trafficking, but we have to set real goals, real laws, and real things in place for them when they come out of the lifestyle.
That was a lot there, Sister Monique. Man, and I have another next line of questioning, but I got to take a break before I could even get into it. You know, we're talking about going from victim to survivor, and then to a savior, and you are clearly a savior. You are clearly a savior. And I guess in the meantime, if someone wants to help Youth Freedom, what is the best way they can help Youth Freedom? And I will ask the production team to possibly put it in the chat for us so that folks can have access. I know, finances always matter when you're doing this type of work, right? Time always matter when you're doing this type of work. Resources always matter when you're doing this type of work. So if you could help us to understand how we could give some time, give some resources, and give some finances to help Youth Freedom, we would like to do that right now, Sister Monique.
Yes, absolutely. I know that the COVID-19 has hurt many organizations. One of the things that we have done over COVID-19 was try to provide funding and food. And not only that, we have a lot of victims that do want to leave their pimps, those who are participating in survival sex in the streets. These young individuals need places to stay. A lot of them don't want to go into the shelters or the domestic violence shelters because they've been involved in human trafficking. Some of them say that the beds look exactly the same as when they, had to go through that lifestyle. And so a lot of them end up staying in Airbnbs and hotels. This is something that we need funding for right now because we're threatened right now with another lockdown because of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some stats that say that it was difficult. It is difficult for these young people to find placement. It is difficult for these young people to stay in a life where they don't have to go back to that. So if anyone will be willing to help provide funding, you can go to our website and you can just hit the donation button there. Our website is freedomyouthnyc.com. That is freedomyouthnyc.com. As far as helping us, we are always looking for people to help, to join our organization, to give your time, donation of your time with our organization. If you're good at dancing, making food, if you're good with working with the youth, if you're good at case management, we're always looking for people to come in and donate their time to us.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Sister Monique. And Sister Cynthia, I noticed in our chat as well as our viewership, we have some educators, some principals, some teachers, some guidance counselors who are viewing this right now. What message can you give to our fellow educators as it relates to sex trafficking and providing them information and education, etc.?
So the first, I just want to tell Monique, champion, baby.
Straight up.
Ian, I think I met you before. Did I meet you in Albany? Were you in Albany? Never forget a champion. Thank you. To those who are listening, who are in the education system, you have to, by any means necessary, make this a part of the understanding in your school. You have to embrace our children. For Monique to have courage to tell a guidance counselor, that meant that guidance counselor was a person that was approachable. For students to run up in the building, I don't know if any of my staff members are listening, but I've had students run up in the building because they had gunmen chasing them and they didn't want to go to anybody except for me. It was like, Miss TJ, they're after me. You want the children to be able to know that they are in a safe haven. Right now, with COVID and those children home all day, that's a caution at another level. I mean, everybody say pray, but prayer doesn't mean anything unless you're doing something with your feet, right?
That's right.
It has to be part of the conversation. You have to address it. The staff have to have an understanding in regards to it. You have to make sure that the staff have some kind of empathy, because it's not going to work. You want the children to be able to come to you and tell you that something is wrong. You also want to be able to approach a child and have conversations with them. I had a student that walked in one day and she said that I was burned And the person that greeted her is who she told first. And then they came to me with her. And they burned her. They took a fork and put it on the stove and was burning her underneath her uniform. And her uniform was crisp clean. So we don't look at individuals that have a crisp clean uniform. One more time, you have to make sure that is a part of the discussions that happen in the school. If you want to look at a book, Push Out is a good book. Also, Centoya Brown is also a good book for you to read, especially when our girls started getting older. And please start making sure that you have after school programs. And right now, being that we are in COVID and there are not that many after school programs, the guidance counselors have to intentionally be creative some kind of way. And Monique, I will be getting in contact with you because I need you to be a soundboard for members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We need to hear you.
Thank you. And Miss Cynthia, thank you for making yourself available literally at the last minute, and providing us tremendous information, especially when we think about education. And under normal circumstances, our children are in school for 7 to 10 hours a day sometimes, and they spend more time at school than they do anywhere else. So we want to make sure that our educators are part of the solution, that our educators understand how vital of a role that they play in helping to eradicate sex trafficking. And Monique, Sister Monique, once again, you know, now we talked about the victim, we talked about the survivor. Now, how do one become a savior? And that's what I call you. I mean, anytime we're out there, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan mentioned that we are all saviors. We're baby saviors when we're working on behalf of our people, when we're helping our people elevate from one level to another level. And I believe that's what you've been doing with the work with Freedom Youth. How do you become, how do you go from a survivor to a savior? And also, if you could also comment on how one handle future relationships after being through such a horrific, traumatic process.
Yes, absolutely. I believe in order for you to become the savior, you basically have to just put action. It's action. You can't. It's one thing to educate and to spread awareness, but there has to be intervention, prevention, and someone has to be doing the walking. We hear about a lot of the organizations that's going out there and doing it, but sometimes you rarely see them doing the work. We have been in the trenches. We are outside in the middle of the night. We have befriended some of the pimps in order to get, make some kind of connections with these individuals. There are plenty of hot spots, all throughout, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, Queens. And so I just feel like, in order to become this person that wants to empower people, you have to put action to it. And it also means that you have to, lay down your sword, and peel back the layers of your trauma in order to help somebody. And that's what I've been doing. And I said, I committed my life to this, to the rest of my life to doing this work, because somebody got to do it.
Got it.
Yes.
And when we talk about the role of, because we talked about already how some of the signs when it comes to our young women, our young men, and identifying some of those signs, right? As Sister mentioned, you have to look beyond the crisp uniform. You have to look literally in their eyes and be able to discern what's happening. But now when it comes to the pimps and dealing with the pimps these days don't look the same way they used to look yesteryear, right? They're not wearing the big old fur hats and the fish scales, in their shoes. How do we spot a pimp?
Well, that's the hardest thing, because anyone could be a pimp now. Anyone. We have seen some as young as 16, 17 that sent their 15-year-old girlfriend out just for an iPhone. So I mean, anyone can be a pimp right now. Um, the ones on the streets look like regular people. They're not wearing these feathered hat anymore. You know, you can only tell them by, you know, the young people that they keep around them. Some of our drug dealers are involved in human trafficking. Some of those people who have the trap house in the neighborhood, they are involved. The local drug dealers, like I said, you know, no one. It could be a young girl. We've had more women now that's getting other women involved. So anyone could be a pimp.
We have a question. Tina Blanche asked, "Where are the parents slash family in all of this? How does that play out?"
Sometimes the parents are at work. Like I said, you know, I went to work. My mom went to work every day. I came home from school every day. And then the moment that I would go out to those type of places and do those, the brothels of some sort, my mom, she had no idea. No one knew. No one knew anything. No one knew. So, you know, you go home every day. The moms and the parents, some of them are having a hard time with their kids. You know, we don't talk about the different fighting that takes place amongst parents and children in the home. And so sometimes the parents lose, you know, they lose that fight against the child, and the child is running things in the house, you know. Sometimes the child is in foster care. Foster care is one of the worst places. ACS is one of, like, some of the worst places to put your child in, because they don't monitor. And if your child is old enough and they're in a group home, they can come and go as they please, and the workers there cannot stop them. So sometimes it's just the loss of parental rights that your child got involved in this. Sometimes it's the fact that their child needed a break and they went into a teen shelter program. And when they went into this drop-in center, another young girl got that person involved. So sometimes the parents just don't have it. They don't have they're not there. They're either not present, or if they are present, they're too strict and they lose their responsibilities and their parental guidance over their child, because of ACS has stepped into the house and no longer have that privilege to tell their child what to do anymore.
And what role does the digital media or cyberspace or internet, what role does that play, and how as parents can we better monitor what's going on?
Now more than ever.
Monique, before you answer that,
Mm-hmm.
at the session that you were in Albany, you passed around this paper with what emojis meant.
Yes.
Yeah, for like if the person sniffed coke.
Yep.
And different things of that nature. I need that paper.
Yes.
Where that
Absolutely.
paper is at.
And in fact, Sister Monique, if you could circulate it to our podcast at some point, we'll make sure we post it in our promotion.
About that as well. Talk to them about that.
Yes, absolutely. And they also have things called hobby boards. So let's say your child have been abducted. So to answer your question, online recruitment is at an all-time high. It is at an all-time high right now. Like I said, you know, everybody's on remote. They're targeting younger children at the age of 5, trying to get through their programs, like their little math programs, these little games that they are on Snapchat, Facebook, all social media handles. Before, human trafficking was only on Backpage. When they shut down Backpage, they opened up every other app that there is. So right now, online recruitment is hot. And parents have to monitor their children. They have to monitor it. There are tons of different apps that you can get to monitor your children. And I would suggest you get as many as you can. You know, if you got to go through their phones, do that. You know, take back your ownership as a parent and say, let me look through your phone. You paying the cell phone bills, take
Correct.
back your ownership. Okay, because it's going to save your child. We just had a young lady, and I was just talking about it earlier. This child was gone out of her mother's house for 3 weeks, ended up in Brooklyn, and ended up being raped. Not only raped, this young lady was trafficked from gang member to gang member. And the individual did not come back the same. So I'm telling you, it is super important that we fight it. And yes, there are different emojis that tells you if somebody is buying someone, if somebody got a younger person, if somebody is good at anal sex, if somebody is good at this, X, Y, and Z. They have it all. And it's listed on the same ones that we use every day are some of the same ones. You ever seen the little water sign? That there's an emoji. That emoji dictates something to someone else that's looking for sex. So there are different things that you guys don't know. Like, for example, the hobby board is something that we don't talk about much, but it's something that should get some light. The hobby board is much like Yelp. Anybody know what Yelp is? Y'all ever
Yeah.
been on Yelp? Okay, so it kind of like rates everything. So when a young person is taken, abducted, or just getting involved in human trafficking, their pimp will rate this person after breaking them in. And breaking them in means that they're having sex with this individual. They had sex. So the person who took them had sex with this individual, and they're going to put down what she's good at. If she's good at having anal sex, that's what they're going to put down. If she is, pardon my language, if she's moist, they're going to put down this is what she's good at. If she's X, Y, and Z, that's what they do. So the moment somebody gets taken, the moment your child is missing at any point and has been taken by a trafficker or a pimp, they are in danger for many things, and one of those things being the break-in process. This is when if your child fights, they'll give them drugs. This is if your child don't fight, they'll just go ahead and put them on the market. This is when the pimps take a complete control with this individual. And it doesn't matter how young this individual is. Break-in happens for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and up.
Okay. Wow. Very vital information. Brothers and sisters, we're at the end of this program this evening. We're definitely going to have to do a part 3. And of course, we'd like Sister Monique and Sister Cynthia to join us on part 3. Because there's so much more that we need to discuss, so much more that we need to know, and there's so much that we can do. But Sister Cynthia, I'll give you some remarks, some parting remarks, as well as Sister Monique, and then I'll close with a brief monologue.
I just want to end again. Thank you for having this conversation that is most needed. And for individuals who are watching and thinking, like, where's the parent? From the parents that I've spoken to, it is hellacious to try to get their child out of being sex trafficked. They said the police doesn't help them. The courts do not help them. Of course, ACS does not help. You have to be on it on your own. And those pimps are relentless. And this is something, like you said, part 3 may have to go into that, on how hard it is to get a child out from underneath being sex trafficked. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, sis, and thank you for doing the wonderful work that you're doing in the planet of Harlem with our young people. And I know you're a universal woman, because I see you in Queens doing work wherever the work needs to be done. You're always there, Sister Cynthia. And thank you for being on the front line protecting our young girls and our young boys. And we know it's not easy, especially working in the construct of the DOE in New York City. And Sister Monique, some parting words for us, please.
I just want to say thank you so much for having this important conversation. Thank you, Miss Cynthia, for your transparency and being open about it, because a lot of people do not want to talk about it and how it's taking place. It is the grounds. It is on school grounds where it's happening. All I can tell everyone is that fight. Everybody join the fight against human trafficking. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until it knocks on your door or your neighbor's door. Get involved now. See how you can help organizations like mine and other organizations that are fighting human trafficking, because we need everybody. You need you guys the most.
Thank you again. Again, this is Brother Esquire of the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. And today was a tremendous session. We want to thank our Councilwoman who was on earlier, Councilwoman Farah Lewis, for her great remarks. We want to thank Miss Monique Ferguson-Riley, again, for her transparency, for the knowledge that she brings to this space, and for the work that she's been doing through Freedom Youth. If you would like to assist her organization, look in our chat and you'll see the website where you can go and donate towards her organization, Freedom Youth. And lastly, we want to thank Ms. Cynthia Turnquest Jones for bringing us information on sex trafficking and how it relates to school children, how it relates to New York City Department of Education and the work that she's doing in Albany, lobbying on behalf of our community. I can't leave this conversation without first saying I want to thank God for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam and the work that he has put on our hearts and on our minds to do in our community when it comes to protecting our young women and protecting our girls, protecting our elders. And this is really a plea to our men out there. If we think that we're going to be respected by allowing our women to be disrespected, we in a horrible condition. As men, we have to step up and find a way to protect and secure our communities. We can't continue to allow strange men and men within our communities to disrespect our women, our girls, and even our young boys. And if we're going to gain the respect of other communities, we must first step up ourselves. We must first determine that we're not going to allow anyone to engage in this horrific industry and go to sleep at night. We have to make a determination that we're going to stand up and protect our communities. And unless we're properly trained, unless we know the signs, unless we understand what this is about, we educate ourselves on these issues, we're not going to have the impact that is needed. So, brothers, if you would like to join the NOI, go to NOI.org and find out how you could get trained, find out how you could get organized, and find out what is necessary to help join the 10,000 fearless men that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan called on a few years ago to help make our communities a safe and decent place to live. I just want to thank all of you for joining us here at the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. And until next week, God willing, I'll see you. This is Brother Esquire signing off. Thank you much. Peace.